Hi, welcome to this presentation on the Annotated Bibliography. In this presentation, I will go over the purpose of the Annotated Bibliography assignment, offer the general format, provide content for the annotations, and offer an example of an annotation. Writing an annotated bibliography is an excellent way to prepare for a research project. Just collecting sources for a bibliography is helpful, but when you have to write annotations for each source, you're forced to read your sources more carefully. You begin to read more critically instead of just collecting information. In addition to helping you learn about your topic, creating an annotated bibliography can help you with your thesis. One purpose of research is to state and support a thesis. As such, an important part of research is developing a thesis that is debatable, interesting, and current. Writing an annotated bibliography can help you gain perspective on what is being said about your topic. You'll then be able to develop your own point of view. Writing an annotated bibliography will also help you include relevant and necessary context when incorporating research into your paper. Annotated bibliographies should demonstrate the following 5 skills: your ability to correctly use a formatting style, your ability to identify debatable issues appropriate for research projects, your ability to select appropriate sources for your specific argument, your ability to synthesize these sources, and finally, your ability to evaluate and analyze sources. Let's go over what the annotated bibliography assignment is. An annotated bibliography is a list of references followed by a description of each source. Each source listed with the references is listed using the chosen academic formatting style, for example, MLA, APA, or CMS. Underneath each source, a description of the source is provided. The annotation may include notes, a summary, a reflection, and/or an evaluation of the source. Let's get some further clarification of the assignment by first defining it. Let's begin with the bibliography. A bibliography is a list of the sources, books, journals, websites that someone is using in a particular research project. An annotation is a summary, evaluation, or reflection, some kind of description of the source. In some cases, the annotation may be less formal and may simply consist of notes or ideas or quotes. Annotated bibliographies typically do the following: correctly cite the source. You're going to cite the source using your chosen academic formatting style, just as you would if you were creating a works cited, a references, or a bibliography. Following the source, you're going to offer a summary. In your summary, focus on the overall view of the source. Provide some kind of big statement about the piece, maybe the thesis or the general purpose of their source. Follow that statement up with more specific details. Depending on how long the annotation is, should indicate how much depth you need to go into. Maybe you want to include the source's organization or the type of support that the source has used. You want to begin your summary with some kind of signal phrase, so some kind of sentence that states the author of the source. If your annotation requires a reflection, then you're going to follow the summary up with some statements about why you've selected this source. Why is it relevant to a particular class or to your particular research project? How are you planning on using this source in your research project? To evaluate the source, you're thinking about the credibility of this source. Is it very credible, somewhat credible, not that credible? You're thinking about the respectability of the author. You're thinking about the publication. You're thinking about the reasoning that the author has used or the type of support, and you're entering into some kind of argument. and you're stating explicitly why you think the source is credible or not that credible or somewhere in between. Here's an example of an annotation. This example is in MLA format, and it comes from a writer's reference by Diana Hacker and Nancy Summers. When we look at this annotation, we notice that it begins with a citation of the source. Again, this citation is in MLA format. Now, on the slide, I have put everything in single space so it can fit on the slide, but if this was your annotation, you would use double space, and you wouldn't include any extra spaces between your citation and your annotation. So all of our formatting styles work with double space, so that means your annotated bibliography should be in double space as well. Let's read the annotation and then talk about the different parts of it. In this scholarly article, bioethicist David Resnick argues that bans on unhealthy foods set a dangerous precedence to threaten our personal freedom. Notice that this annotation begins with a signal phrase. It states the author. It also begins with a big claim about the article. It starts off with the overall purpose of Resnick's article. He claims that researchers don't have enough evidence to know whether banning trans fats will save lives or money. All we know is that such bans restrict dietary choices. Our next sentence we know is continuing the summary because we have he as a pronoun to represent the author. Resnick explains, here again we have another very clear signal phrase, so that indicates to the reader that we're continuing with our summary, why most Americans oppose food restrictions, noting our multi-ethnic heritage and regional traditions, as well as our desire for freedom to choose your own foods, even food with long-term health risks. In this summary, we are providing not only Resnick's arguments, but some of his reasoning for those arguments. The author acknowledges that few people would probably miss eating trans fats if they were banned entirely, but he fears that such bans would be a slippery slope and could lead to further restrictions on products, such as red meat and sugary sodas, which are also known to have harmful effects. Resnick, a bioethicist, offers a well-reasoned argument, but he goes too far by insisting that all proposed food restrictions will do more harm than good. At this point, we've transitioned away from the summary into an evaluation. We say that it's well-reasoned, but it's also faulty. So we're talking about the logic of Resnick's ideas, and as such, that means that we've entered into an evaluation. This article contributes important perspectives on why many Americans see government legislation as unreasonable and provides counter-arguments to other sources that claim it would be unreasonable not to enact legislation to advance public health. Our final sentence of this annotation is a reflection. It's explaining how this source fits in with other sources and possibly with this particular research paper. So this is an example of an annotation that's a paragraph. Most of the time when you're writing an annotated bibliography, you're going to be asked to keep your annotations to about a paragraph. So this student has been able to get in a summary, a very, very short evaluation, a little bit of a reflection. So it's a fairly good example of what you can expect for an annotated bibliography. Let's review. The purpose of an annotated bibliography is to help you understand your sources and to gain a sense of the critical discussion happening around your research topic. So that's the purpose of doing research. And when you go and collect your information and then you summarize it and reflect on it, then that's going to give you a stronger sense of the source and will help you do better as you work towards completing your research project. Use your chosen academic format to format your annotated bibliography. So you're going to format your sources just as you would on a works cited if you're using MLA, on a reference page if you're using APA, on a bibliography page if you're using CMS. List your source first and then follow the citation with your annotation. And although our example was in single space, you're really going to do your annotated bibliographies in double space unless your instructor has indicated otherwise. The content of your annotations will typically include a summary, reflection, and/or evaluation. How much of a summary, reflection, and evaluation depends on how long the annotations need to be. So if you're asked to do fairly short annotations, then you're going to do a very broad summary. If you're asked to make longer annotations, then you're going to provide more detail. So it depends on the length requirement. In some cases, you're asked to do what might be called a working annotated bibliography. And in that case, you're not producing a final product, but you're using it as a generative writing activity so that your research paper is stronger. Sometimes when you do that, you may be asked to just simply provide some notes or some direct quotes or some ideas. So it could be really informal. Thank you so much for watching this presentation on the annotated bibliography. If you have this as an assignment, I know you'll do great.